Good afternoon, potato chips. How you doing? It's wee Paddy from across the shock, and it's the weekend again, and this is where I get a whole stack of knives out and then think of a topic. And the topic today, I'm not sure what the title is going to be yet, but so you want to be a knife collector, some tips that you might want to think of as you're starting out on your knife journey. And what I've done is I've got sort of 4 sections here of knives. They're in sort of price ranges, kind of, but they're sort of the 4 stages. There is a fifth, but I'll talk about that. But the 4 stages of knife collecting, I would suggest, and this is just me, from what I've learned over buying knives for 5 years, from very high and expensive ones to very low and budget ones. But some of the pitfalls, some of the downsides, and some of the great reasons why to buy one from each of these sections or a few from each of these sections as you're going through your journey. Today, people have more money to buy high-end expensive knives than ever in the knife hobby. People have that bigger income now. A lot of people, not all of us. I can only speak. The majority of people have more easy money, if you like, to spend on a hobby. And if you haven't got it, this is not the hobby to get into, because eventually it will come where you're spending a lot of money if you enjoy it. And that's why starting at this end of the board is the most, not even responsible. If you're like me, I don't have a huge income. So when I buy the purchases up this end, they're significant purchases from my budget. So I think very carefully before each purchase. Can I afford it? Do I want it? Do I really need it in my collection for the things that I like? So I'm just going to start here. These first two are the budget knives. And should you buy budget knives when you just come around? Because you can come onto YouTube and you'll see all these channels and they're all doing knives. At the minute, the average knife for most of the channels is about £150 up, for what they call a reasonable knife. I dispute that. These budget knives are incredibly reasonable, and they will do most things that anything will do up this end of the board, in my experience. In my experience. Do they have the best materials? They do sometimes. Do they cut as well as the ones at the top? Yeah, most of the way. Have they got the same blade materials at the ones at the top? No, they just don't, except for maybe the traditional budget knives have a steel which is carbon steel, which takes wicked edges. And yes, the older knives had a lesser carbon steel, but they were so thinly ground on these traditional knives that they'll cut as well as anything up in this high end of modern. No doubt, maybe it won't last as long, but they'll cut every bit as well. But you've also got things like buck. Now, over here in the UK, it's a bit more expensive, but you can buy buck knives and the derivatives. There are tons of them. There were Chinese made, all sorts of different people made the big buck type knife. Brass, wood, metal, thick, really thick, but very, very comfortable. A super knife, especially if you're a woodsman or you like it. It's a really super knife, but in the budget price. This is just a basic buck, but it will do everything that I would need a knife to do, including longevity when cutting. Most of us, I believe, do not overuse knives. And if you're a collector, you have so many that it's very rarely to blunt one. If you strop your knives, which is a whole new thing, but if you strop your knives daily after use, you very rarely need to sharpen them again, because the blade steels, even on these budget ones, are good enough to last most of us our day. Do you know what I mean? They just will. Your bucks are 420 HC. It's Boss heat treated, so it lasts longer than most 400 series knives. Buck really do a great heat treatment, one thing they're famous for. But they're very much working, hunting, fishing, that sort of knives. They're maybe not the most easy to carry. You need to put this on a belt, really. unless you're quite happy at carrying. These are about, what are they? Nearly 7 ounces, or between 6 and 7 ounces. So they're quite, maybe even heavier. I can't remember now, but it's a heavy, big knife. The option you can have is something like this Ganzo, which was one of my first proper knives. It's got an axis lock, which after years of having this is every bit as smooth as a Benchmade, without a shadow of a doubt. And the more modern Ganzos, their action is even better. And I've never ever broke a spring on a Ganzo. And I have had so many, I can't tell you. And I've abused and tested so many. So the budget knives gives you, if you want to go on to, Spyderco and things, will you like a Spyderco? Will you like the axis lock? You can try cheaper versions, which are not the same as, but they're close enough, with maybe lesser material on the blade. Oh, this is 440C, which is a perfectly adequate steel for anybody's workday. Rough Rider, just to name one of the Chinese companies that make traditional knives. They are stupendous quality. For $10 to $20 to $30, they are just absolutely stunning. Absolutely amazing quality. 440A steel, which doesn't last a lifetime, but look, there's very few times I run out of longevity in these in my day. So if you're wanting to start, to skip past the budget section completely, I believe you're missing out, because you get to see what sort of style of knife you like before you move on to paying more money. And each of these segments, the 4 segments, they incrementally go up in value. They cost you more, basically. So starting, and like this one here is an old knife. You can pick these older pocket knives up on Instagram, Etsy, wherever you would get that sort of thing. Wherever you buy your knives secondhand, you can get these for buttons. And the more you pay for them, the better quality they are, because some of them are over 100-year-old. But they still work every bit as good. And the blade stock is so thin on these that they'll cut cardboard when they're dull. When they're blunt, they'll still cut cardboard. So that's, if you didn't find these things out, by the time you get up here, it's too late. You're already in a place where you're hardly going to step backwards. Everybody tends to move forward. I like to move back and forward, because that's the joy I get. I know the value of these. Value money-wise, they're not worth anything. You'll not get much of a resale for them. They're just how you get your feet into what you want. Do you want the modern action knives, or do you want the old traditional knives? And as you know, my channel, I have both. And I thoroughly enjoy both sides of the hobby. Thoroughly enjoy it. At the minute, I'm on a kick for traditional. For years, all I wanted was modern folders. So knife collecting does move about an awful lot. And let's move up a bit. Now, this is sort of this side down now. These 4 knives on this side are £100 and under. And this is your case knives. We've all heard of case knives. But another company where you can buy really high quality knives at a reasonable price is Shatton Morgan. They don't make them anymore, but you can buy them on the secondary market at reasonable prices. And the higher quality you buy, the more you pay. Dead simple. But if you buy one that's a bit scuffed up and a bit used, you can get it for a reasonable price, and you're getting a really good knife. Same as case. Fit and finish on both of them can be hit and miss, but not that much. They're usually still very usable knives and of a good quality. And it lets you see patterns that you'll like. Again, moving from the Rough Rider, which have more patterns than most knife companies. But when you picked one, you can move up and buy one in either one of these sort of higher end models, under the £100, but quality to go with it, usually. And I have to keep saying usually, because sometimes companies go up and down in quality. Sadly, that's the way it is in the knife community. On the other side, the modern knives, again, these are all under £100. Now, you can get them dearer than that, but you can get a large amount of their products for under 100. This is a Tucson. This is a really old one. It's in D2, so it's a blade steel that's going to outlast anything on this side, because Tucson do a pretty good heat treatment. And I only find that out because I bought and used so many of them. Today, the most modern one is Civivi. Now, this is a lockback with a beautiful knife, beautifully thin behind the edge. This would cut when blunt. It's that thin behind the edge. There's not many knives out there will do that. Beautiful fit and finish on them, modern materials, but a beautiful knife. And it's, it is modern. These are traditional. And so from there down is all under £100. And I know that sounds an awful lot, but you don't have to go straight to the £100 knives. You can pick Civivis up for £40, £50. You can get these for £15. The old Ganzos in 440 that had the G-lock, they called it. You can pick them up now from AliExpress for 15 quid. There's no money at all for 440C, and they've got more modern ones in D2 now. They'll only cost you maybe 30 quid. And so you're jumping up to this level on materials, but you get to know whether you're going to like this type of knife or not. Some people love Spydercos, some people hate them. Some people love bucks, some people hate them. And the same for Rough Rider and older patterns. Some people do not maybe want an old knife in their pocket. Others love them. People love or hate Rough Rider. The same goes for Case, the Shatton Morgan, Tucson, because it's Chinese, an awful lot, Civivi, Chinese, but yet more people like these because they're more modern looking, although Tucson just has a huge variety of knives and their fit and finish is very, very good. Civivi's very good as well for a budget type knife. And this is what, under the 100, is kind of budget now. It's just, that's the way it goes. Everything goes up in price, and knives are no different than anything else. They've gone up in price, and they will keep going up. You might not get your money back on these ones, but you'll get a percentage of it back on these type of knives, because there's always people coming in who want to buy these type of knives. And that's the other thing I would say. When you come in and you want to move up categories, move up to second hand in that category, because believe you me, after a while you'll move on, and if you don't, you've lost nothing. So buy second hand if you can, because I can tell you, you might start here and think, I'll never need another knife. But if this hobby gets a hold of you, you'll be above here before you know it, and you'll find a way to get the money for the knife. Hopefully not going to damage your family, but you'll get an extra job, if need be, to fund this hobby. It is addictive. And that's the fear I want people to remember. This can be completely addictive. It really, really can. So on this side now, we're £100 and over. The first four are under 200. And for modern knives, again, these are older modern knives. This is the Benchmade 940 and the ZT0450. They're older knives, but they're of a good quality material. They're powdered steel, so this is S30V, this is S35VN. So they're really good blade steels. They're really good materials, titanium, all right, this is aluminium, but the axis lock and the action on a Benchmade knife is second to none. It's just beautiful. That would be one of my favourite knives ever. This is close second, to be honest with you. These are both lovely knives. So rather than jumping up to something that's brand new at 150, 160, 170 pound, you could pick these up on the second hand market for 70, 80. So you're going to get this high quality knife. And the other thing that I'm going to say is going to sound very weird, but these knives at the very end, the most expensive ones, are just these knives newer. So this is a new model. These were these, and after years of being in production, they come down in value, like most things do, like your car, like anything. It comes down in value. So you're just buying yesterday's high-end knives for today's prices for their age and what they are. But these are perfectly great knives, and they're a joy to own and hold and share and do YouTube videos on, because there's new people coming in all the time, and the more advice I think they can get, the better. So on the other side, you have, this is a tailor's eyewitness made by one person, and his helpers say. This is Lee White who makes these, and these are really high quality. They're up the high end, the 100 high end, although he does the cheaper models of these, which you can pick up for 30 quid. And it's still the same boy who makes these. So they're still good knives, but the fit and finish, they're made for work knives. In the UK, a lot of farmers still buy the Tailor's Eyewitness and the Arthur Wright and Sons for proper work knives. These are high-end collector knives. You know, this one's about 160, 180 pound, depending on what the materials are you have in the handle. Then you've got GEC, my favourite of all. And the start at GEC is madness, because to get GECs, especially over here in Europe, it is hard. You have to want to be a GEC groupie to put the time and effort in and money to buy these. But to me, they're the best knives in the world. Production knives made in the old-fashioned way, in machines that are over 100-year-old, some of them. Yes, they've got some more modern ones recently, but they're still made and put together in the old way. They still have a fit and finish that is second to none. They have blade shapes which can't be beaten in my eyes. That clip is just gorgeous. Just the action on them is beautiful, much like the action is on these knives. This is still, this knife, I don't know how old it is, but it has still one of the best flipping actions of any knives out there. And look at that beautiful blade, the attention to detail. It hasn't got the very thin behind the edge, neither has the Benchmade that the more modern knives have. But these are the things, thinness behind the blade and the blade steel becomes much less important, I believe, the more you get into knives. Yes, you chase them. Once you get addicted and you're at this level, you chase the higher end ones then. And hopefully, if you're sensible, you'll chase the second-hand market for these. And I've got a couple here. Now, I'm saying these are sort of 200 and over, but they're not actually. This one is a sprint knife. And I think this is the Para 3 and M390. It was a bento box. I think the sprint runs can run up and over 200, I would think. But they're a super blade steel. Will last you for days rather than a day that some of these ones will. These will last for days. You have to learn how to sharpen, which is a very important thing. If you learn it back here, it makes much more sense when you get to here if you can sharpen your own knives well. This is a Hinderer. This is my most expensive knife that I have at the minute. I just got rid of a Chris Reeves and I had another one that was about £600 of value. I've got rid of, and this is my most expensive. This is a Hinderer. This is actually a modern slip joint. But Hinderer do these sort of knives. But 300 is about the minimum you're going to pay for a new one. So again, I'll always advise it. If you can, buy second hand. Because the people who are buying the high-end knives tend to look after them because they spent so much money on them. They don't tend to abuse them and batter them with bits of wood and things like that. And on the other side here, this is one of my most, well, it is my most expensive slip joint. This is an MDK. This is a Duplessis, Mark Duplessis. Oh no, it's not Mark. I've forgotten the blooming name. Anyway, this is a handmade custom slip joint with beautiful hand-sanded blade going along vertically. It is just gorgeous. I absolutely love it. With modern materials, this is just a stunning knife. Really beautiful. But you can tell that hand grind is just beautiful. I love the blade shape. It's like a little stub nose revolver. I just love it. And again, made to exacting standards where you're getting charged just under £300 for something like that. But here's another custom knife that costs you under £150 if you're buying from a local knife maker. And this is where on that journey, you'll get to find out about local knife makers. Well, you should do. You should look out and search for local knife makers. This was handmade by one person for me and under £150. Beautiful bone. He dyed it for me. There's a blade, it's 01 tool steel, which is as tough as nails. Great blade shape, great work knife. Will do as much work as any of these will. And this is just a stunning piece. An absolutely stunning piece. Now, what happens when you get to here? Well, either madness ensues, and it lasts for a little while, and then you come back down to earth again, or madness ensues, and you keep going. And you can keep going to the thousands of pounds for a knife. I can never afford that. And I'm too old now to be ever able to afford that. I'm never going to have that income. So I have set my goal. It's a new goal. I'm not spending more than £300 on any knife anymore. Now, I've said this before and broken it, but I'm serious this time. I found a niche of knives, GEC and now customs, that I can keep that value there because I'll buy them second hand, so I can buy them at a price I can afford. But I still go back here. This one is only a couple of weeks old. I bought it because it has carbon steel on it. Rough Rider do a lot of 440. This is carbon steel on it. It's a beautiful knife in micarta with blue liners round the knife. It's just beautiful. Look at that big ram's foot blade in carbon steel. It's a great knife. And for the price, I'm actually getting spotting on that, but that's all right. It's going to be used. So if I'm going to use these knives, you can use for your hard tasks. The one thing I would say is try not to stay here and buy too many of them, because you don't get anything back for these. You know, these are, once you've bought them, you'll not make much money back off the price if you want to resell them. So, I mean, I was wrong. I bought stacks in the beginning because that's what I could afford when I was starting out. I bought stacks of them. I should have saved up for maybe another month and bought one of these ones, because this mid-range is where an awful lot of people are comfortable, the £100 and under. And you'll find when you get there, no, do you know, this is lovely. I don't need to go beyond that Shatton Morgan or that case. I'm enjoying that. But if you start up this end, why would you step down? It's much harder to step down than it is to step up, if that makes sense. It does in my head. But it's much easier to step up because it's a gradual process. But if you start here, you're going up over £300 to your next level. That's a crazy pressure to put on yourself, that in maybe 12 months' time, you mightn't be a knife collector, because people come and go like any hobbies. So to me, starting out with high-end knives is not doing you any favors, because you're missing out an awful lot on learning what the older knives were like, why we've moved on to the more modern knives, you know. And once you get up to this level here, you're talking serious money to anybody for a pocket knife, because it only cuts, and it only, you know, this £10-20 knife cuts every bit as good as that £300 Hinderer. It does. I mean, that's a simple fact. Does it last as long? No. But does it do me all day? Yes. Can I strop it up easier? Yes. Easier than I can strop this up. But you know what I mean? I love this knife and I wouldn't give this away. This is one of my favourite knives. So is this, and this. So this is where I'm comfortable at spending money on modern knives. I've gone up now to £300, but I'm getting custom knives made for me in the £300 and under. You can't do that in modern knives. Or I don't know where you can get the quality for that price, because custom knives are just expensive. But modern ones, you can start to hit the custom. Once you go over sort of 180 to 200. Once you go over that, you're into the custom end where you can afford custom knives. And again, I'll keep saying it, buy second hand. Every chance you get, buy second hand. Unless, for me, I love the new GECs, but I'll often buy a user. It's much cheaper, and I get to use it more than I would something that's going to cost £200 to replace. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know whether that was interesting or not. I enjoyed just talking about it because I enjoy talking about knives. But, if you set your goal when you're starting out a bit lower, you don't have to go completely budget. If you can afford to stay in this sort of under 100 and that's comfortable, start there. If you can afford to start at 100 plus, start here. And the only reason I'm saying that is because so many people come in and I see them forking out a whole lot of money for knives. Yes, they've got them, but after a year they disappear. And where do them knives go? Where do they go? So enjoy the hobby. Do not be persuaded to put out big money straight away until you find out. And you find out by going through a journey. And anybody can start at any part of the journey. I would recommend this part. Learn about knives. And that it increases your pleasure in the hobby when you gradually get to build up to the higher end models. And I'm going to say it again. It's easier to come from here up to here than it is from here to here. Once you've got this high end in your hand, it's very hard to step down. And you're missing out on so much quality because you've already hit that high level. Take care. Paddy's away for a cup of tea. This went on. Sorry. I hope there was some enjoyment. Let me know down below what you think of my thoughts. And does it affect you? Or is it something you would look to do before, if you're just around? But if you've been around a long time, is this the way you went? Or did you hit high and stay there? There we go. Finance always is an important part of that. But when I was buying these, this is all I thought I could afford. I'm now buying these. And especially this section. Take care, everybody. Paddy's gone.